Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Plymouth. Welcome to the first inaugural Futures Diving Cup. Really, really excited to be here. As I say, this is the first competition. We've never seen one before like this. You can see the divers behind us warming up, preparing. We've got a couple of events in this first morning session. My name is Freddie Woodward. I'm going to be commentating for this entire weekend. I also have this charming young man next to me, Kyle
Morning,
Katari.
Freddie. How are we doing?
So I'm doing very well. How are you, Kyle?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. Excited for the weekend's events.
Yes, of course. And this is cool because, see, I'm just working behind the scenes, but actually, you're working with me this morning. You're commentating with me and presenting, but also, you're going to be competing tomorrow.
Yeah, in the synchro event, men's 10 meter tomorrow. So let's see how it goes.
Amazing. So you're adding another string to your bow, Kyle. This is exciting. So, Kyle, I know personally you've had some, say, injury issues in your career, right? That's something that you've battled with a lot.
Just a few.
Just one or two,
one
right?
or two.
But nothing too
minor,
serious.
yeah.
Yeah. Snapped Achilles and so on. But Kyle, that means that you've lost opportunities to do competitions, right? And so how important is it, therefore, for you to be able to have extra events and be able to compete in a competition like this?
Well, I mean, for me, this will be my first international, technically speaking, in 2 years or so since we've had COVID and lockdown and everything. And I think that's the case for a lot of the guys here, just a lack of competition. So it's nice to get everyone back together, get some countries involved.
Of course. So, and you mentioned the countries. So this is it's a small event, isn't it? But maybe that's going to be a nice thing. So we have a lot of the home nations here representing. So we have Great Britain, England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. But also we have representation from Jamaica, we have representation from the USA, and a team from Canada as well. So how important is that to get that international in the event?
I think it just changes the dynamic of the event. It doesn't become like just another home comp. You get to meet some new people, get to see what the rest of the competition throughout the world is saying. And it's a good chance just test yourself in a friendly environment before you go to these big competitions.
These big competitions, exactly. And one of the good things about this event is we actually have the national championships, the British national championships, in about 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right.
So this is kind of for a lot of the British guys. This is going to be a warm up for that. Is it important to sort of dust the cobwebs off before a very important competition like that?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, we did a dry run through training last week, and I can tell you for sure that there's some rusty boys out there.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know how that feels. So that is great. And just to add to that, why is the national championships going to be so important this year?
Everything hinges on this nationals selection for Europeans, Commonwealth Games, loads of Grand Prix events. So this is a big one. Everything is just hinged on this one comp. We've had no other competitions to judge anything off. So yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
pressure.
No pressure. That's one of the tough things with diving, isn't it? The pressure, performing in the moment.
For sure, and that's what separates the best from everyone else.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So as I say, we are moments away from this event. As I say, the final preparation dives are getting in. We'll be seeing the parades very soon. But as I say, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for joining me here, Carl.
My pleasure.
You're going to be joining me in the commentary box as well?
I will. Yeah,
amazing
looking
stuff.
forward to it.
Yeah, so we're going to head over there soon. But guys, thank you very much and enjoy the show. Well, and welcome again. So Kyle and I, we are now into our commentary position. We are ready for this morning's events and for the parade that is about to come up. So we are going to see all of the divers parade first. We have 2 events in this morning's session. So we just have a look at this session 1 that's coming up. We have the men's 3-meter preliminary event first, and we also have the women's platform event. So that is going to comprise of, both events are going to comprise of junior and senior competitors. So yeah, we can see they're coming up at 9:30, so in just under 15 minutes we have the men's 3-meter springboard, and as you can see, yeah, like I've just mentioned, senior and junior, and the same for the women's platform in just over an hour's time as well. We're going to parade all of the divers together, so we'll see all those first, so then when the session begins, we'll just have back-to-back-to-back diving, and that's something that I'm really excited for. Kyle, like we saw, just to clarify, in this event, we have senior and junior. They're going to parade together and compete in the same event, say, for the men's 3-meter, but they're not being considered for the same results, are they?
No, so you will see a bit of discrepancy. You'll see some juniors maybe pip some seniors, which will be exciting. You know, it's a good chance for the seniors to see who's pushing them, who's coming through, you know, and maybe push them to do some big dives.
That's what we want, isn't it?
Of course,
that's
always.
What we want. But that's something that can be more difficult in the morning sessions, but particularly for me. Obviously, I was a 3-meter springboard diver. So often I found it hard to feel at full power, full readiness at 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you wake up, you have your breakfast at 8 a.m. and you think, wow, I've got a difficulty of 3.8 in about an hour's time. Oh, God.
That can be daunting, can't it?
Let's hope that Weetabix does the job.
Well, that's what Weetabix was designed for, no?
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. To keep you going for that energy. So I think we are almost ready for the parade, so we're about to see the divers soon. But yeah, just to clarify, like you said, Kyle, the juniors, some of them might pip the seniors,
Indeed,
but they won't be considered for the same results. They're still in separate events.
The events will be, they'll run together, but apart from that, they'll be completely separate. Medals will be separate, and in terms of things like at national selection and juniors, seniors, they'll be considered differently. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see them all compete together. It's quite rare that actually happens. So nationals is the only other event. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an opportunity that I'm sort of looking forward to, and I think a lot of the guys will. But yeah, you're probably right. Some of the seniors they'll be nervous, but pleased that perhaps the results aren't going to be mixed, right?
You can't be. It's almost a kick in the chest when a junior beats you.
It is, but also maybe that kind of experience would galvanize you possibly to then right, I got to really step my game up.
Yeah, for sure. They'll be looking to put some consistent dives together.
And that's important. Yeah, so as I say, we're going to have the judges. They're not going to be paraded for any of the preliminary events or the semi-finals, but we will have a parade for the judges for the finals, and that's where they're going to be sat right there. So we're going to have 5 judges, and we'll have 1 referee. So the top and the bottom scores from the judges, they're going to be removed, so we create a nice median range, trying to get rid of any of that bias.
Yep.
And then, yeah, as I say, the referee is going to be the one in control of the whole event. As I say, the final dives, that was an interesting dive from Tyler.
That was an interesting dive.
You train with Tyler. Can you explain that?
He's been looking at adding the reverse 3.5, 307C into his list.
Yeah.
We've just seen him do a reverse 306, a reverse triple on 3-meter. That's something that Tyler's one of those guys in training where he just skill chains everything. He does every single dive, does the full lead-ups all the way. Whereas you see a lot of guys just go from a 2.5 straight to a 3.5. Yeah. You'll see Tyler train a triple. He's got that. He's got one of the best awarenesses in the air that I've ever seen. He can weasel his way out of any mistake.
Yeah. That's an important skill in diving because
for sure.
Yeah, I think a reverse triple somersault from the 3-meter board is not a lead-up I would have ever chosen to do.
No, I don't think anyone would have ever chosen it.
Just Tyler.
Just Tyler.
Well, kudos to you, Tyler, if your family listening. Yeah, that was a surprise for me to see. But as I say, I would have probably...
It'd be interesting to see if he actually, you know, he gets the 307 out in the final. I know I've seen him train it,
Yeah.
and it is still a new dive for him. So I hope he does, but he might just choose to play it safe. Let's see.
But he's not bringing that in the preliminary round.
No.
So that's interesting that he's doing those lead-ups for it now. Oh, he is.
He is.
He is, actually. Tyler's third dive with the reverse 3.5. So
excellent.
That's exciting.
Things you love to see.
You wanted to see big dives, didn't
Exactly.
you, Kyle? We've got them. We've got them. Awesome stuff. Yeah, so as we mentioned, we've got the men's 3-meter springboard competition coming up if you've just joined us. We are going to have the parades any second, so we'll be able to actually see the divers who are going to be competing. But we're also going to parade the women's 10-meter platform as well. So that's going to be awesome for us to see. One thing I think that we'll see, so for the senior women's platform, they're only allowed to use the 10-meter springboard, correct? But for the junior, are they allowed to use 5 and 7?
I actually not 100% sure. I believe definitely for the senior women, they'll all be doing their dives off 10 meter. I think they do have, at this event, I believe they do have the option to use a 5 or 7, as it's not as strict as a national. So you could see some dives off the other boards. Let's have a little look.
Yeah, let's have a look. Why don't we take a look at the women's platform preliminary? So yes, we do. But there's only a few. We've got, yeah, we have some dives happening from the 7-meter platform, and also a couple from the 5-meter as well.
Definitely. So some more in the junior event.
Yeah, I think from the senior, we'll only be seeing the 10-meter. Kyle, can you explain why, as you're a platform diver predominantly, so can you explain why the senior women are only allowed to use 10-meter, but the juniors can use 5, 7, and 10?
At a senior level in men's or women's diving, we tend to do lead-ups off the 5-meter and 7-meter in preparation for 10-meter. And as a junior, sometimes you're just not quite ready to do the big dive off the 10-meter, and those dives could still be in development. And so, you know, you can't just go to a competition and not be missing a dive. That's why they allow them to do something on 5-meter, because they recognize that, you know what, this is still a developmental phase of your diving career.
Yep.
So you'll just see the dive on 5-meter with a somersault less, or a twist less, or a 7-meter dive, which will then be moved up to 10-meter. Yeah.
And crucially, it's less impact, isn't it? That's one of the key things, because I mentioned it earlier, and we'll go into some more detail, but injury is something that's plagued your career, isn't it?
Yeah, and for a lot of the junior divers, and just 10-meter divers in general, wrists are a big problem, and hitting the water that fast off 10 meters at 14, 15, repeatedly, sort of 60 times a week, it's not great.
Even at 24 or
even at 24, yeah.
It's probably not ideal.
It's worse at 24.
Yeah, I think I feel that as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose ultimately as well, like our upper bodies, our wrists and elbows and shoulders, they're not designed really to take that sort of impact, are they?
No, and that's why you'll see a lot of the junior guys wearing wrist guards this session, and a lot of the senior guys as well, just for injury prevention.
Yeah, of course. But that's obviously something we see less on the 3-meter event, because, you know, clearly the height is lower. Although, you know, you will see some of these guys jump up to perhaps even, you know, touching the 7-meter platform sort of territory, especially Yona from Jamaica. You know, he can get some dramatic height.
He can get some serious height. Yeah, I feel sorry for that springboard sometimes.
Yeah, of course. I'm not aware of exactly their names. So yeah, that's something, and I think that's a bit of why he's a fan favorite, isn't
exactly.
it? You know, get their height. The really dynamic dives, and you want to see that height that they can achieve. We're going to see some big dives this morning. Just looking at some of the men's start list, even from the juniors, we've got some sort of considerable dives here. So, you know, I can see
even within the junior event, we have some. We have a couple of reverse 3.5s.
Couple of reverse 3.5s, yeah. And I can see some double outs, some reverse 3.5 twisters. Yeah, some big dives. It's nice to see the juniors trying to, you know, add those senior dives into their list, especially some of them at such a young age as well.
Of course. One thing I feel like I've noticed coming into this event, there's been a lot of physical changes in everyone, but particularly the juniors. These are some of the people that I haven't necessarily watched so closely for a while. Oh, the crowds are filling up. We have the audience ready to cheer and support. Yeah, the physical changes. I've been wondering if that was perhaps one of the advantages, let's say, of the pandemic, not being able to train in the pool as much as you could have done.
Potentially, yeah.
So the physical training really stepped up.
I think, you know, that much time spent away, it looks like everyone's just been pushing some serious weights. You know.
Is that what you've been doing, Kyle? Pushing serious weights?
Unfortunately, I have it. I cannot put on weight.
I have the same problem. Yeah, it's tough. Well, it looks like those are the divers. They're ready for the parades. That's probably what some of the delays have been. It's really difficult to actually gather all the people in the right place at the right time. The athletes don't understand it. You just think, why am I being bothered? I just, you know, I've got my competition routine. Yes, let's go. But obviously for the organising staff, we're a nightmare, aren't we? Or I used to be, and you probably still are a little bit.
Oh, definitely. I would be there, just very laid back and chilled, and then being an absolute pest for the organising staff.
Yeah, I fully understand that. I fully understand that. Although the parade was actually one of the bits I used to enjoy. That was when the sort of the confidence would maybe sit in, or I feel like that's what I would need to show, and seeing all of my fellow competitors.
It's a nice way to sort of just reset your focus and just get ready for the upcoming comp.
Yeah, and you know, you start to wish all of the other people luck, and you know, you see exactly who your competitors are going to be, and you know, give them their support. That's something I always enjoy.
There's a lot of camaraderie down in the parade area, I would say.
Yeah, I think there is, and as I say, that was one of my favorite parts in it,
for sure.
And I think we are very ready for the parade to take place. So we're about to see the divers walk out. As I say, we have the men's 3-meter springboard first, so I believe they'll probably lead the way. You can see Leon Baker there at the start of the men's 3-meter queue. He's one of the guys I would say has bulked.
Yes, for sure, and you can see that with his dive list. There's he's doing a reverse. I believe it's a reverse 2.5, 1.5 twist, a reverse 3.5, and a double out. So you know it's going to be impressive to see.
It is, and for someone who is a junior, that's tough. Those are big dives. Those are dives that you see on the senior circuit. So to have that already, and I think particularly actually for springboard, to have the physical development to be able to, and technique, to actually execute and do some of those dives. You know, it's a lot of power, it's a lot of skill, and it takes years of building to do that. So the fact that, you know, people like Leon and some of the other guys, particularly in this junior event, have crafted that for themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's almost a race to see who can develop those dives fastest and then just add them to their repertoire. And a lot of that's down to, you know, how early they might go into puberty, how easy they put on muscles, and I think that's why you only see them at a senior level. Yeah,
of course. So they're on their way now. We can see, and as we mentioned earlier, this is a semi-international event, isn't it? It is an international event. You can see the USA tracksuits right there. We have people representing Great Britain. We have people representing Scotland, and this is all in this first event. We have Ireland as well. We have Canadian divers just walking past there, and of course, the big man, Yona Knight Wisdom, James Heatley from Scotland, and Grace, and more divers from the US, and those
nice thumbs up from Hannah there.
Very, very happy to be here. See the smiles. I think I'm really pleased and happy about British diving for putting this event on to give these guys, particularly the juniors actually, an opportunity to compete. here we are. So yeah, we'll get in tight on these divers. And here we go. That's Leon from Great Britain. And Joshua from the USA. And next we have Maxwell, also from the US. And our next diver representing Great Britain, we have Hugo Thomas. A third diver from the USA, Caden Springfield. And our Scottish diver in the men's junior event, Danny Mabbott. And also from the United States of America, we have Tyler Wills. So this takes us on to the men's senior springboard. So this is 18 and over. We have Tyler Humphreys, Great Britain. He's a teammate of yours, isn't he, Kyle?
Yes.
Bjorn Markington from Canada, the first Canadian athlete we've seen, and also Cedric Fofana, the second Canadian athlete. And we have Cameron Gamage representing Scotland. This is Jake Passmore representing Ireland, our only Irish competitor, I believe, and our only Jamaican competitor, Yona Knight Wisdom. And of course, last but not least, in the men's event, James Heatley from Scotland. This takes us on to the women's. And this is Grace Alley. Yeah, so she's going to be representing England. And we have Jaden Lynch from the USA. And Ellen Gillespie, she'll be representing Scotland. And Bailey Sturgill from the United States of America. That's a very nice smile, Bailey. And Libby Duke also representing Scotland. And then our final diver in the junior women's event, we have Hannah Newbrook. So, the last group of individuals for this morning's session, Eden Cheng, representing Great Britain. And we have Kate Miller, she's representing Canada. And we have Josie Zillick, she's going to be representing England in this event. And so we have Gemma MacArthur representing Scotland. And we have a Welsh competitor, Lucy Hawkins. Emily Martin for Great Britain. And the seventh and final competitor in this event, Robin Birch, representing England. And we will now listen to the national anthem to open this day's competitions. There we have it. That means now that the competitions are ready to go. It's great to see such a diverse range of athletes. As we saw in the parade, we've got the men's, they lined up first, so we have the men's 3-meter competition coming up first, and that will be followed very quickly by the women's competition. So as I say, the start order we saw in that parade, that's the start order that the divers will come out in. We will have the juniors first, so they're going to set the standard.
Exactly.
And then the senior men, they're going to come after that.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see. A lot of people have a preferred start order. They don't like going out first. So, you know, I'm not sure how the guys feel. Who's up first? Who do we have?
So we have Leon Baker.
Leon, okay.
Yeah, so he's going to be our first guy taken to the stage. I wonder if that's something that Leon feels comfortable with. It can be a tricky thing to be the first diver in any event.
Yeah.
Some people relish that.
I mean, sometimes you almost feel a little bit like if you do a really good dive in that first round, you don't feel like you quite get the scores you deserve sometimes. The hype of the event hasn't got to the judges yet.
Okay, so this is a message to the audience here and people at home. We want to give that energy to the judges. We want to,
for sure.
We all, as divers, well, ex-diver myself, but I still associate myself with you guys. I'm clinging on to that desperately.
Well, we'll keep you about it.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, we can pretend at least, just for this weekend. But we wanted that energy. It's because the judges' scores. That is one of the things that can inspire good performances. If you do a great dive, but perhaps you're not going to get the scores that you were hoping for. It can be a bit disheartening, can't it?
I think definitely I hope the judges use the full scale today.
Yes.
And I want to see...
I think that's 10, guys.
At least, obviously, on 3 meter, a lot harder to get a 10, as you're probably well aware.
Well aware.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Sometimes on 3 meter, you feel like you've done just a perfect dive, and then you might just see a 9, and you're like, come on.
So, for people that might not be familiar as to why, what is the reason behind that?
Just a lot. With the approach or the board timing, it's a lot more technical. There's a lot more the judge can pick out that's gone wrong. A slight stamp on the board might even just, if it's a perfect dive, they might just make you give that 9.5 instead of a 10. Also, from a lower height, much harder to hit the water with no splash. Don't quite have the momentum to pierce the water.
That's true.
And that's the main thing.
And it's a quieter entry typically.
Exactly.
Maybe one of the things with the 10-meter platform is how aggressive, actually, a ripped entry from the 10-meter platform can be audibly.
Just audibly is a lot, that the judges are seeing it in that split second and just putting in the score straight away. So yeah, things like that, the crowd, the noise of the rip entry, they make a big difference.
They do, they do. So we did just see all the judges there lined up. And we do actually have 7 judges for this morning sessions event. And one of the important thing we can see, we've got judges representing all of the different nations, and that's something that is important, and that it's always done to try and remove as much potential bias that could go either way from the judges panel to try and make the competition as fair as possible.
We'll see a range of diving styles, and sometimes it might resonate with one judge and not another. So it's good to have a varied judging panel so that you don't have just one style of diving. It becomes a little bit boring. I like to see a little bit of flair on the board. Everyone has their own little quirks.
Yeah, that's what we want, flair.
Flair, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Kyle, I want you to point it out when you see it.
Yeah, I will do.
Flair. We'll let all the people at home know. And we are ready to go. We are a little slightly behind on this first session, but I'm sure we're gonna make up for that. And Leon Baker from Great Britain, he is ready to go. But it is important for the divers that they don't rush themselves. They have to take it slowly, even if the schedule's behind. It's important, say, for Leon to just follow his routine.
For sure.
So he can do his best competition.
He's going to go at his own pace here. And let's see. Hopefully there's a good start to this competition. Best of luck.
That was an excellent dive to begin with.
Very steady.
We did talk about the strength that some of these guys have possessed. That is a slightly easier dive, but he made that very easily.
Very easy. Slightly away from the board. Just not as high as I've seen him do it in training, but you can see he's spotted that entry so early and managed to rip it.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, but even though it was slightly further away, still a very comfortable dive.
Very comfortable, steady start.
And Joshua Sollenberger from the US now. And that was a good, steady start. Typically, we see divers choose dives that they like and feel more comfortable to begin with.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the case for Josh. 4 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist, executed nice and solidly. He'll be pleased. We'll get the nerves out the way.
Exactly. Next up, the same Maxwell competing the same dive as Leon has just done. So we'll be able to compare the differences, see how it's reflected in the judges' scores.
Yep. Yeah, Maxwell from the United States of America, inward 2.5 somersaults piked. So again, that was pushed a little bit away from the springboard, wasn't it?
Pushed a touch further back than Leon's, which is why he struggled for rotation there. And you can see legs slightly crimped because he knew it was slow. He tried to sort of save the dive. Not a bad start, but I know he'll know he could do slightly better.
Of course, and moving into hopefully if he can get into the final, he can show that again.
For sure.
And now our first Well, our second British diver, sorry. This is actually Leon's synchro partner, isn't it?
Yep, Hugo. So the same dive again. Seems to be a popular one, I think, the non-hurdle step start.
And another solid performance as well. He's just, even though in some ways they're a team, these guys will be really trying to battle it out with each other.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see the similarities between Hugo and Leon's dive there. Both very similar, very neat. Just slightly chesty on the end, which is why he's not completely disappeared. But no, very good start for Hugo.
You mentioned then a non-hurdle step start.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, Kai. We're seeing that again now. Caden from the United States, he's doing an inward 2.5 somersaults in a tuck position. But again, this is going to be another standing takeoff.
Yeah. So we can see from a lot of the guys, the opening up on a hurdle step is quite nerve-wracking. And I think an inward 2.5 is one of the easier dives in a lot of the boys' lists today. So it's a nice steady one to start on, settle the nerves. And we can see a lot of them just all finding their entries. So, you know, good dive there. A touch slow, but he's gone through the wall with no splash.
And that's key, isn't it, in this first round of dives. Same dive from Daddy Mabbott from Scotland, but in the pike position again now. I love Danny's shape.
Yeah, shape was great. You can see, if you just look on the end here, he's lined up slightly underneath and caused him to arch on the end. Otherwise, that would have been, if he just held a bit tighter, it would have been beautiful.
And yeah, that's where the water's hit his chest, and that's where we saw the splash kick down the pool. But it's still a really solidly executed dive from Danny. And with Tyler from the USA for 2.5 somersaults, 1 twist. So maybe Tyler executed well, but struggling for a little bit of height there. So perhaps it did look slightly on the rush side, but he still had all the rotation to execute the dive well enough.
I think Tyler specializes in the platform event, and we'll see him in that tomorrow. You can tell from the height on the board, but still managed to find his entry there.
And doing both the 3 meter and the 10 meter, that's a challenge, isn't it?
Of course, I would say they're very different events.
Oh, Tyler. Oh, last but not... Well, yeah, he's really pushed the board down a long way then. He's another one who's impressed me with his strength. However, he's done too much there.
Yeah, we can see he's the first senior diver to go, and you can see how easy he makes that dive. Just dropping the head slightly so he's not spotted the entry and hence rolled it over. But let's hope he can bounce back next round.
Yeah, I'm sure he can. We're on to our first Canadian diver in the men's event, Bjorn. And we're going to see a different diver, back 2.5 somersaults pikes.
Also another standing dive. Probably a favorite of his.
That would be my guess. I can see why. Yep. It's interesting that because he's executed that well, it has washed slightly over, but it's still performed well. There are divers who prefer back and reverse.
Yeah, some people prefer the forward spinning rotations. You can obviously see that's a comfortable dive for him and looked quite effortless.
And we have the same here as well. His teammate, Cedric, doing the same dive. That's interesting.
That is interesting. Maybe training partners potentially. And very similar, very similar.
Yeah, I imagine he'll get similar execution scores there as well. I think we may have just looked at Bjorn's dive there, but nevertheless, Cedric, well performed, well executed. He'll just be ready to move on to his second round dive. And our first Scottish diver in the senior event, Cameron Gamage, the same dive again. Back 2.5 somersaults pike.
That's not pike.
Again, it was
solid. Was almost there. You can see when he's pressed here, he's pressed it precisely the right time to attack that line, but he's just pulled it over with the arms at the end. Yeah. Very close.
Maybe he just rushed the takeoff slightly. There can be some of the first round nerves.
Yep.
but he still held his tension on the end to create a good dive. And our Irish diver, Jake.
Lovely. Nice height. Little slow, which is why he's had to fight for that entry a bit, and that's why you see that little bit of chest out and that bit of splash being kicked up. But apart from that, great power on the board.
It's a trade-off, isn't it, between somersault speed and height, often. And yeah, he went really high then, but perhaps lacked a little bit of the rotation.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot of height from Jona's dive here. Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
Great dive. That is a really, really, really nice dive, Jona. You can see the difference in height, and this is why that's the first dive we've seen that's cleared 8s consistently from all the judges. Not just the height, though.
No,
everything really about
Perfect timing, lovely shape, good form, and entry. For a guy that big, I couldn't tell he's gone in.
Jona? I do know that that is a favourite of Jona's.
Yeah.
And we can see why. This is our first really big dive of the event, the inward 3.5 somersaults.
Yeah. A big start for James. Oh, I mean, obviously not a big start for James.
No, of course. he can handle anything.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, to open with a dive like that can be tricky, especially in the morning. I think he'll be really happy with that.
For sure. Steady. It is a hard dive to open up on, and I think he'll definitely take that. A nice steady start.
Well done, James. And now we're back around to the junior men's. Round 2, back to Leon. A forward 1.5 somersaults, piked. I think Leon's height does look like he could be in the men's event.
For sure.
It looks to me like he's tried to grab his hands together slightly too early.
What's happened is he's got an absolutely mammoth hurdle there, and he's not quite he's come out and just still had 3 meters to line up and been, oh no, what do I do? And you can see he's just come out a bit early and rolled that a little bit over.
Yeah, he can actually relax and enjoy that time, can't he?
For sure.
Same dive now from Josh. He's actually done the opposite mistake there slightly. I really enjoyed the dive in the air. He's just lined that dive slightly short. Rather than rolling that dive over, he's lined up in front, and
he's lined up exactly how Leon should have lined up.
Yeah. Maybe they can just
they should have a little chat.
Yeah. And again, the same dive now from Maxwell from the USA. Maxwell has lined up correctly there, I would say.
Yeah, he's done very well to sneak that in off probably a hurdle that was leaning a touch far out.
Yeah.
And he's done a good job to save some 6s there.
He has, really squeezing into that pike shape to make that dive as easy as possible for him. So moving on now to Hugo. Again,
I think we're going to see
3.5 somersaults pikes.
Yeah, we're going to see very similar to Leon here. Nice high 3.5 pike. Let's hope he can get some hands on it.
Let's see them, Hugo. Let's see them.
And he's got a good hurdle there, slightly over the end, as you can see. And he's not quite sent the hips back enough to hide that distance. So you can see a little traveled away from the board. And it's just slowed him down a touch when he's let go and meant that he's dropped short.
Yeah, we saw his toes were slightly over the end of the springboard. That can make it sometimes difficult, but he still put in a very solid dive.
Yep, got his hands.
Once again, Caden opts him to do the same dive, forward 3.5 somersaults, but again in the tucked position.
Tucked position.
Oh, that's a shame, Caden. That's the first big miss, I'd say, that we've seen. The hurdle step wasn't ideal, was it?
No, he's put his leg down and realised he was about a foot from the end of the board, and it's always difficult trying to save a dive from that position.
That makes it extremely hard. He has a beautiful tuck shape. I can see why he's choosing those dives.
Very neat diver.
Very neat diver. So back to the same dive in the pike position from Danny now. Danny successfully found the end of the springboard.
Yeah.
That was on the slow side.
That was on the slow side. He got a good hurdle, but the arms came through slightly late, which meant he didn't quite get the rotation. And he came out very confidently, very confidently. But he did a good job to sneak it in.
He did, and he still kept the entry good. There wasn't much splash there, so he's worked that well. He's fought, you know, it's important never to give up on a dive, is it, Kai?
No.
You keep fighting until you're climbing out of the poolside. So this is the first dive we've seen that's actually different in this second round from the juniors. Back 1.5 somersaults with 2.5 twists. Beautiful twist.
Very quick twist to Tyler.
Beautiful twist. As I say, you mentioned Kyle, he is a platform specialist. He's using this event as practice, maybe to shake the cobwebs off, but he's a very tidy diver.
Yep.
On to the men's now.
Good save from Tyler there. You can see he was a bit flustered in that hurdle. Had a little bit of a twist, a little wobble here with the legs going sideways on the corner of the board, but he's done a good job to sneak that in.
Again, fighting. I think some of the judges might have picked up on his feet not being exactly together or both pointed. Those can be things they choose to deduct on.
Yes, and I think the sixes do reflect that.
Yeah, exactly. And on to Bjorn now.
Oh,
that's excellent. That was really, really well executed from Bjorn. In the first round, he did a backwards dive. In the second round, doing reverse. So those are both backwards entries. It's clear that those are the dives that he likes.
Yeah.
He's executed that really, really well.
You can see it's had a nice flow to the entire dive, and he's absolutely slotted that in at the end.
Just comfortable, wasn't it? So that's a big dive from Cedric. 3.4 degree of difficulty. The forward 2.5 somersaults with 2 twists. That is a hard dive. Not the takeoff he probably would have liked.
No, and he was a little bit back from the board, and you could see he was always fighting to get that round. Hence, he's actually overcompensated on the end.
He's probably be happy that he twists very fast, Cedric. But then perhaps that still made him overwork the entry, just causing it to over-rotate. And Cameron inward 2.5 somersaults piked now. He's had to fight on that one a little bit.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen him stay over the board longer just to make that dive as easily as he could make that.
You can see he's come out early, which means that he's used to making that a touch easier than that takeoff would suggest.
But not a bad dive by any means, but you're always looking for more, aren't you? You know,
Yeah.
It's hard to be completely satisfied.
These guys will be picking holes in every little thing in their diving.
It's true. Jake there on doing the same dive, inward 2.5 somersaults pike. Jake looking very powerful. He's caught his chest on the entry. I was hoping to see that go through the water a bit more cleanly.
We actually saw that in the first round on his entry as well. Let's hope he's obviously woken up this morning. He's got the power, so let's see if he can start putting some entries on these.
That's maybe something that his coach will be trying to help him with in between the dives. Yona now, his second dive, back 2.5 somersaults in the pike position.
Wow.
Another great one from Yona. He clearly means business. This is Yona's, one of his easiest dives, isn't it? And you can see that.
Yeah, you can see for him this is like a training dive. You know, something just to ease into the session, and you know, spots it 3 meters high, slots the end.
He's probably still very happy that he gets to compete that dive in his list.
Oh yeah.
Settle the nerves.
I would like to see him up that to a 3.5 for sure.
Oh, he is a big boy, though.
He would hate me saying that.
Yona, what do you think? When you watch this back later, let us know.
Do it, mate. You've got it.
That's a dive that James is going to be attempting in this competition.
Yeah.
That's going to be a new dive for him. But right now, he's doing the reverse 1.5 with 3.5 twists. beautiful.
That's lovely.
Really beautiful dive. I know he's very comfortable with this dive. James twists very well. He also got a great hurdle.
Yeah, he's
really
gone straight up on that board. And obviously, look, you can see he's square on the end, which is it's a big challenge with this dive to not be sideways after that many twists.
That's a battle
As I'm sure you know.
I'm very familiar with. James has succeeded in that battle far better than I ever did. So well done, James. Leon now, another reverse twist dive, but a different one. 1.5 somersaults, sorry, twist, but with 2.5 somersaults.
Yeah, nice to see something different being used. Lovely.
Really well done. I think he's the only person we will see in this competition perform that dive.
I believe Hugo might actually be doing the same dive.
Actually, I think you're
they
right.
are synchro partners.
They are synchro partners. So yeah, you're quite right. But nevertheless, it's a difficult dive, but he's done it really well.
He's done it really well. Great entry on that. Just lost the legs a little bit, which is why he hasn't got straight 8s. But, you know, that is a solid. He'll be very happy with that.
Especially in this preliminary round, I would have thought.
Yeah, early in the morning.
He had his espresso. That was Joshua's back 2.5 somersaults piked. He's jumped well, but perhaps he could have had a bit more extension, give that extra somersault speed.
It looks like that's quite an easy dive for Joshua, and he's tried to control it, and just at the end, just not quite reach back far enough to slot it in.
Yeah.
But it was very close.
It was, and I enjoyed the aesthetics of that dive. It was nice to see, and now his teammate Max on the same dive.
And now Max has done exactly what he should have done. He's come out slightly early. He's recognized that he's going short and just pulled it in and saved the dive there.
I think the only place he's really lost there is back on his leg line. That was noticeable from the side angle.
Yeah, and maybe that distance from the board.
Yeah. So Hugo now, for 2.5 somersaults with 2 twists. Again, this is a 3.4 degree of difficulty dive. A big dive for a junior.
Yes, and this is often the first senior dive that juniors learn, increasing the twist by 1 from the 2.5 with 1 twist.
Yeah, that is a good point. It's a common progression, isn't it, for these guys? Well, I think he got the position on the springboard he would have liked, but maybe he's not had the composure just to keep the technique off the springboard in the way maybe he would have liked.
Yeah, I think it looks like he was really thinking about that entry and just didn't quite attack it enough.
Yeah, I think so. It's a good effort, but he'll hope that he can have another attempt at that.
I've seen him train it
final
far better than that, so hopefully he makes it through and we get to see that in the next round.
Yeah, that's something we can talk about in a minute, actually, but we're seeing Caden's back 2.5 somersaults in the tuck position.
Wow.
Beautiful dive. He's really trying to make up for round 2. Doing these lower degree of difficulty dives, it's important to execute them well, but that's exactly what he's done. Yeah. A beautiful dive.
We can see that 1.6.5 from the judging there, potentially because it's a little stuck, a little slow in the spin, but that allows him just to know exactly where he is and put that in.
I would say that maybe a little harsh.
Yes, for sure. That's a nice
solid dive from Danny. Well done. He's flicked into his twist really early. He's feeling confident, isn't he?
You can see he makes this dive with acres of time. And he's had 3 meters to come out that pike, see the entry, and put an end on it.
Yeah, and he's taken advantage of that. So Tyler with a reverse 2.5 somersaults in the tuck position now.
Oh, now that's naughty from Tyler.
That was naughty.
Yeah.
That's a response to Caden's, I think.
He kicked out there and had probably no right to get his hands on that, but very early with the come out. But he's
taken all the water down with him, hasn't he? All of it. No, nothing escaped. And Tyler now, the dive that we were talking about in the warm-ups. 3.5 somersaults with tuck, reverse.
Let's hope this hurdle goes well.
I hope so.
You know what? Not bad, not bad. I think he was a touch over on that hurdle.
He was. It looked like it was still okay. You'll see his toes over the end. Sometimes that can help. You get that extra push because of where the weight
allows
is.
you to sink the shoulders back and get a little bit of a whip into the somersault.
Yeah, but it does also give you the risk of pushing you forward, and that's happened a little bit to Tyler there.
That has.
I think that was a solid execution. He'll hope that he can have another go at that. Well, he will in the semi-final, and maybe that's where he can really try and nail that.
Nice entry.
Nice entry.
Just a touch away from the board there. But that sort of allowed him to have that nice sort of float. That's why we only see sixes from the judges with such a nice entry.
Yeah, they are one of the really key things in this sport is the direction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense, but you are looking for that direction. It's where you actually get the most control. But you're right, it probably helped him on that entry to get that sort of constant flow into his hands. And his entries is clearly something that Bjorn is very comfortable with.
Yeah, it seems so. So we can see Cedric just putting the bum back on the takeoff there, bringing up the legs and struggling for rotation a touch.
A touch. He's been very clever on his entry.
He has.
He's still kept the water down with him, and that will allow the judges to go with him more, despite being a little bit short of vertical.
So Cameron reverse 2.5 somersaults piked. Probably a dive he's quite comfortable with. He'd be looking at that 3.5. He'd be at that stage.
He's definitely got the strength.
Oh.
Cameron.
The commentator's curse. Yeah. Cameron, I want to see that 3.5, mate.
Let's have it. You can't be doing reverse 2.5 pike like that.
No.
And not be over 3.5. That was easy.
So high, so high.
Really high. And especially in a pike shape as well. Still very, very comfortable. Perhaps it's too easy, too much time.
You can see he's so small but powerful, and that's ideal for 3-meter springboard.
It is. But Jake now forward 3.5 somersaults piked. I really loved the pike and spin of that dive. Had a great turnover to it. He was still a little bit back from the springboard, but it didn't stop the way that dive flowed.
We see Jake just everything good, and just at the end, just not quite getting that suction on the entry that he'd be looking for. But you know what? That's all for the prelim. That's all he'd be looking for.
Exactly. I think so. This is another of one of Yoda's easier dives, so he'll be hoping for really top marks on this one.
Wow.
I think it looks like he's diving in slow motion, kind of.
Yeah.
He's running the dive playback at 80% or something.
Often the juniors do what's called required dives, simple 1.5s, back dive, reverse dive. For him, that dive, he makes that dive look like a required dive, doesn't he?
He does. But that does show, actually, the step up to some of the more difficult dives can be such a big gap, can't it? That it's really, really difficult to actually add that degree of difficulty. So sometimes you find yourself stuck in some of the easier dives.
Yeah, even just adding a twist to that dive is it's a big jump. That's why the DD goes from 3.0 to 3.4.
Exactly.
And adding another twist, which is what James will do later. No, that's the hardest dive on 3-meter with
exactly.
a 3.9.
That's as big as they come, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a big. I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh, me too. But he's got another big dive now. That's just James's list. He doesn't really have any
Unfortunately,
simple ones, bankers.
That's the curse of the men's 3-meter list. It's just back-to-back difficult dives.
It is. But that's what James wants. I know that it stresses him out sometimes. He won't mind me saying that. But his execution has been phenomenal, actually, in terms of the consistency on
very, very steady.
Even these bigger dives. And I think you can see why. That's not the best I've ever seen him do it, but it's just very comfortable, despite it being a hard dive. I think it's one that he's very comfortable with now. You rarely see him miss it to something worse than that.
Yeah, I think just there, he's actually got a great top on that, and got just a little bit excited about that and come out a touch early.
Yeah, just a touch short of vertical, and that's where the splash came from his shoulders, but still solid.
Very solid.
And Leon's back 2 somersaults piked now. Well executed. He's not got the exact line-up position that he would have liked to make a really good entry.
But you can see how much power Leon has got there. I mean, he's cruising that dive. He's pressed to the pool side and still gone over. he'd be looking at that back 3.5 for sure.
He will. Leon, I'm envious, I have to say. But we've got a big dive now from Josh. Reverse 3.5 somersaults tuck.
He's done a good job at saving that. A really good job.
I think that must be, you know, one of the stronger rotations for him. He's done really well. That's a big dive, and he's got it on his head. He's just not found the entry.
Yeah, you can see he's not quite got the rotation that he's probably used to getting, and he's still had the awareness and the composure to put it on his head.
I'm really impressed with that. That's tough. Max now, same country teammate of Josh's, same dive but 1 somersault less, so significantly easier. He's landed a little bit short of vertical.
You can see he's gone for that big score. He's pressed early. He's tried to make it look pretty, just a touch too early.
Yeah, touch too early, and he had to try and work that one around, didn't he? But still clever hands. One thing I want to take this opportunity just to mention the difference between the junior competition and the seniors. We have a semi-final later today for the seniors. The semi-final for the juniors is going to be tomorrow morning. All the finals will be tomorrow. But the juniors are going to do their requireds in the semi-final. And then it's going to be a combined total of all of their dives. Hugo will be a little bit disappointed with that one.
He will. I think that's one of his dives I see in training that he can slot that in sometimes. You see how early he's pressed. Too early on that occasion, but sometimes he gets a great start and just that would slot in.
That's something that he's clearly capable of, isn't it?
For sure.
But yeah, because the juniors, they still have to do required dives in their competitions, that's the format we're doing. So they're optional dives, no limit to the degree of difficulty. That's going to be this round. We have the required round coming up tomorrow morning, and then the top 4 divers from the combined score of the preliminary round and the required in the semi-final, they'll get to do their optional dives one more time.
One more time in the final, which is how the junior event tends to work on the world stage, hence that format.
But we won't see that from the seniors. The seniors will just be doing their optional dives 3 times if they make it through to the final. Well executed, solid. I've been impressed with the form, we call it, of Danny. His leg line, toe point is always really on.
Very clean, very clean. I think just a little bit more confident with that press, and that would have not washed over. And we can see from Maxwell before, just on that reverse turn off, he definitely is a fan of spinning back and reverse. You can tell he knows exactly where he is. Just didn't quite get the hurdle he was looking for.
Yeah, that's something he's struggled with a little bit in this event, isn't it? Yeah, that's also the springboarder's curse.
Solid from Tyler.
Solid. He likes back and reverse, I believe, as well, doesn't he? I would want to see, to get more there, he could work the knee save more, which is where, when the knees go through the water, to pull all of the splash underneath.
And just a little more form in that tuck shape would be nice to see.
Exactly, yeah, just pointing those toes just to polish everything. Those are little things that all the judges look for, isn't it?
Yeah. So Tyler's done a good job there. I mean, you can see he's very far forward in that hurdle, hence the 5s and 6s, but he's actually managed to get an entry.
Yeah, for Tyler, perhaps one of the things that he can work on is getting that direction on his front spins. He's very strong, very capable. He just lets it drift, and the hips can pop up over and over his head, up and over his head, and that will help him execute that dive, take it to the next level.
Yep. A nice 7.5 pipe for Jean here. Oh, wow.
Stunning.
That is a clean entry, isn't it? That's a perfect entry.
He's a tall boy, Bjorn, so that can make things more difficult. You don't necessarily get the same somersault speed, but he stayed over that springboard to give himself the best chance. Just knows exactly where he is.
They're the
Beautiful
sort of,
hands.
They're quite rare, those entries on 3 meter.
They are.
Seeing something that clean is, wow. Cedric, I've seen him been training that, and he'd definitely take that. I think that's a big dive for him. Oh, for anyone. For everyone.
It is. It's hard. I believe he's only 18, so it is very impressive to see the younger guys doing dives like that, especially in the preliminary round. To put it on your head, there's more left in it. He'll be hoping for more as the rounds progress, but I think you're right, Kyle. He'll be happy.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, he had that, didn't he? He had that.
He did. Once again, it's a similar issue to the previous round. He's very strong, very, very capable diver. He's improved a lot since I've last seen him, and adding this degree of difficulty. But it's too much. Do you think maybe it could be the extra competition adrenaline?
It looks like he's just got that little bit more power than he's used to. And just putting his head down on that entry there instead of having that confidence, which is hard to do in comp, to actually lift your chin up and see it.
It is. There's so many things that have to go right, and to keep that composure, sometimes the easiest things go wrong, and they can be the most frustrating.
Solid dive from Jake there.
Very.
He'd be happy with that.
So again, I've been impressed with Jake so far. He looks strong. He looks like he's in good shape. He's consistent.
Yeah, nothing that far off. Everything's been there or thereabouts, and he'd be very happy with this start.
So this is where Jona's serious competition begins.
Yeah, I know, not a favourite of his this dive. So let's hope he can put it in.
Yeah, so it's in with 3.5 somersaults with tuck. There's a lot of somersaulting for Jona to get in.
Oh, he had a good start there, didn't he?
He did, and you can see with the way he came out of it, we call it the pike out, the way that his legs straightened so quickly. He felt like he had time, but he just needed a little bit more.
Yeah, he would say to me he got complacent. That would be the classic Jona comment.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Carl, that is a difficult one for him because he's so tall. He needs extra space to come out of his shape, and when he doesn't have his signature hurdle step, which gives him a lot of that height, when he's just on a standing takeoff,
yeah,
that
those standing dives are a challenge when you're that tall, for sure.
Now this is a dive I'm really excited to see. I believe this might be the first time he's competed this dive. Very hard dive.
Often the last dive seniors add to their list. Even though it might not be the highest degree of difficulty, I would say is considered the hardest unanimously by a lot of springboard divers.
I think that is unanimous, really. But you sort of get a little bit robbed on the degree of difficulty. You get 3.9 for a triple out, 4 2.5 somersault, 3 twists. Very hard dive, very complicated. But actually,
you got the hurdle.
Exactly. That's the crucial difference. And there's just something about that back 3.5 that a lot of people find hard. But kudos to James. You know, this is why this competition is a nice one, because it's an opportunity to try things.
Exactly. Big dive for Leon here.
Oh, that's a shame.
That is a shame.
I was impressed with his composure on the start. He was over the end of the board, but he held on.
But you can see, like, he didn't even do a full arm swing there.
No.
And he's still managed to get that dive around, which shows you how much he's got left in the tank.
Yep.
And still as a junior.
Definitely. But again, if he'd have just popped his legs through more towards the ceiling,
he could have actually saved it.
He could have had that.
Yeah. Josh getting his hands there. He can see, obviously, a very comfortable dive for him, a bit lower degree of difficulty.
Yeah.
He's tried to give that a lot of direction. Very tall, very steep, allowing him to work that entry. And you can see he's got his hands there, lovely.
And it is important on those degree of difficulty dives lower degree of difficulty dives to try and get everything you can from it. There's no harm in using that.
That's a big dive for Maxwell there. A forward 2.5 with 2 twists. I mean, compared to the rest of his list, that is the highest difficulty, I'm sure, by far. And he's actually done a good job there. You can see the slightly later flick allowing him to get that entry, whereas you see some of the senior divers actually flicking to the water almost after the first somersault.
They do, and especially if you want to add another twist on top, that's the sort of power on that dive you need to be demonstrating if you want to take that extra twist into your game. But still, I'm really pleased to see, you know, people pushing that degree of difficulty here.
A new dive for Hugo here. He's added this to his repertoire very recently, so let's see how he does. Okay,
you're his
not bad.
teammate. You think he's happy with that?
I've actually, even though a new dive for him, that is actually one of his dives in training, which he can do really well. I think he'd take that. It's not it's not a bad dive. It's not,
no, by no means.
But he could definitely get some 7s on that in the semi-final.
Yeah.
So he had a good hurdle there, just slightly away, and it just made him get touched up.
Well, let's hope we get to see that again then.
Caden with a simpler dive again, but you can see he knows for a fact it's a touch slow. He drops the head in his repike here, just trying to get that clean end, and he's done a good job at that. He saved it.
He has. That's something that's been quite consistently impressive with Caden, his ability to find a nice entry. But that's important when he's, you know, slightly under the tariff of some of the other divers.
Going for that execution.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
That's a big shame. Yeah.
So, obviously, you knew from the hurdle there, and he definitely knew as well that he was going to struggle with that slightly over the end, and it's gone miles out.
There wasn't much he could do there to fight that. That is the springboard worst nightmare. Toes over the end, but also the body leaning.
The shoulders, that center of mass over the end of the board. That's it.
That's a crucial difference, and there's only so much you can do, especially in a pike's position. That's a shame for Danny, but let's just hope he bounces back.
Tyler, I've seen him do that better in training. I think he's obviously pushed that back a bit, and
a bit too much really to give himself the best opportunity.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Just tried to overcome, but still got his hands.
That is true.
You can see that platform diver in him.
So he's saved himself, you know, half a mark or a mark there from the judges, but he still can't get much more than he did.
Lovely entry from Tyler there.
Really nice, really nice. It's solid, it's comfortable. He's done his best by making the entry as good as it is. His leg line is beautiful. It looks maybe a little too comfortable.
It did look a little labored, I think, trying to control it too much. But, you know, whatever it takes to get those hands, I suppose. And it's only a prelim, so.
That's true, but I think to see the big scores from Tyler, to see more attack, an earlier press, and then he's certainly got
that's
the power
that flair we mentioned.
Flair, there we go.
Exactly.
Bjorn's showed us some flair so far,
He has. There we go. Bjorn certainly knows where his entries is. I mean, slightly away from the board there, and low finishing, but he's gone through the water. You know.
And that's something that even a layman knows about diving. The entry's key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why Bjorn has been really impressive.
Cedric showing the exact same. Maybe not the best hurdle, slightly back, which is why he's gone away from the board. But, you know, really sneaking in an entry.
And that is crucial. Cedric's hurdle has impressed me, but it's big, isn't it? It's really high.
He doesn't hold anything back, does he? No.
I like that.
No, I like that as well.
That was something I found difficult, was to attack my hurdle as much as possible, because in the back of your mind it's always, but what if I overshoot this, you know, and you end up in a situation like Danny. I thought that would be the worst case, but actually you want to see that attack, really. Someone who has plenty of attack, Cameron.
He's gone slightly back on the board there, and he's still made that dive with A, because he's come out, almost looked at the ceiling. and still got that in. Just left it a touch short.
I think I saw him give a little wink to the camera there as well. Nice one, Cam. Yeah, loads of time, as you mentioned, Kyle. Really comfortable dive from him. But to get the most out of it, he would have wanted that hurdle step right on the end of the board.
A better hurdle, and that would have been an absolute corker.
Interestingly, Jake now is one of the only divers. He might be the only diver in this event to be doing the walking hurdle.
Step hurdle. It's very rare you see it these days. Over the past, 5-10 years of men's free meter diving, to make these higher degree of difficulties, a lot of guys going for the bouncing hurdle.
Yeah.
Just a touch away and early, but it's not a full drop. Let's hope he can bounce back. He's been very steady so far.
He has, so he should have some wiggle room.
Oh, Yona.
Beautiful.
That is a lovely dive.
Entry, excellent. He'll be delighted with that. This is the bounce hurdle we're just referring to, actually jumping onto the end of the board. One thing that Yona's constantly fighting against on this dive is how much he sort of pushes it forward.
Yep.
Because he is so big, so much weight, it is difficult for him to ride the board as long as he should.
But he's recognized that and just put the feet directly up and really slotted it in. And it's very easy to get complacent, as I'm sure you know, on that dive. Big dive from James here.
Big dive from James. But again, despite this being 3.8 degree of difficulty, I just keep seeing him nail it in a lot of the international competitions.
No.
Back in the Olympics and the World Cup, very consistent for him.
Oh, that is a shame, because I know how well he can do that dive, and I've seen him do it for nines. And
a lot of times.
A lot of times, yeah, multiple times.
You saw the wobble on the hurdle step.
Yeah, and but even with that, I still had faith before he went that he could get an entry on it. And maybe he left himself too much to do, but I'm sure in the next rounds it will go through.
Especially when I sound a little bit like a broken record, but early in the morning is harder. And you do a list that's just back-to-back dives hard. He has no sort of respite.
No.
It's just constantly difficult.
That was a solid dive from Leon. Again, slightly very early. You see how early he twists there, giving himself an early repike and a lot of time to spot that entry. Yeah. He has a bit of his own style in that lineup. It's very much wide arms, head down.
Yes.
Seems to get his entry. It works for him.
He got his entry, so that's interesting. It isn't normal technique. That could be something that begins to cause him some issues, possibly, but maybe not. It's hard to say. So far, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, Joshua with a solid dive there. Very high, a touch slow, but you can tell he knows exactly where he is on that.
Exactly, and you're right, it was high, and that's probably my favorite thing to see on the springboard, is just trying to get that height. So I'm impressed with Josh's diving, actually.
3.5 twister from Maxwell here.
He's a good twister.
You can see that. It was a shame about his hurdle there.
It was. The dive's gone too far forward. So again, when you're doing the whole dive pretty much in a straight position, if you've pushed yourself out down the pool, it's hard to get that back.
Yep.
But he does twist very well.
Interesting twisting technique, often similar to mine, actually. The arms in close to the chest, the gymnastics twisting position, whether it's, you see a lot of divers with one arm behind the back of the head, a bit taller in the twist.
So does that suggest to you, Kyle, that he probably was a gymnast like yourself prior to diving?
Very probably. I mean, a lot of the guys here are very similar sports.
Yeah, a lot of transferable skills.
So Hugo, I know for a fact that this is his favorite dive, and he loves, in training, I've seen this like 4 or 5 in a row, just slot in.
Bish,
and
bash,
even with a slight mistake there, slight early press, you can see he's cleaned it up and saved the dive. And that's the sort of composure which comes with your favorite dives.
Yeah, that extra level of confidence. So it's great to have you, Kyle. That little insider scoop.
Lovely entry from Caden.
Really, really nice dive from Caden. It's difficult for Caden because a lot of the people in this event are, you know, some of the senior guys, and people are going high, and, you know, we've got very big legs. He can't compete with that height.
No,
that
and
is going to cost him on the scores.
The judges will be, they won't potentially go as high, but just because of the other dives they're seeing. But very square in the twist and a great entry.
Yeah, he's doing everything he can to get all of the scores he can out of the judges. It's just a more difficult thing. Danny,
same
solid
dive,
yeah.
reverse.
Yep. He was a bit loud on the springboard.
It was, and you can see that stamp has sent him slightly away, and he's really had to fight for that entry there. A little bit more direction, and that'll be an easy dive for him.
Absolutely.
Oh, Tyler slotted that in there.
He did slot that in. I thought he might have been a little ambitious on the come out, but I was wrong.
No.
He still managed to find his hands again.
As we watched the takeoff there, me and you probably both thought that's a little high and steep, but he's recognised it and just held it that little bit longer to get that entry.
And then really dug into his pike out to just get it absolutely vertical.
Very good awareness from Tyler.
Really, really solid.
Another 3.5 twister from Tyler here.
And it's another good twister.
He's a very good twister, very spatially aware. And now that's a shame. That's because I know for a fact that's one of his more comfortable dives, and I'm seeing him do that really well as of late. Very square in the twist, as you can see, straight out the board, but just too far to get to have enough time to get his hands.
Yeah, he took it a bit on his shoulders, didn't he?
Exactly.
And as you say, one of his banker dives, he will be disappointed because it's a big degree of difficulty. 3.5, you know, if you can have big scores on that, that gives you a really nice total.
Yeah,
but he's slightly missed out on
having that as one of your comfortable ones is a real asset.
It is.
Awesome entry from Bjorn.
Back to back to back. Great entry from Bjorn. He's not slipped up yet, has he?
No. I mean, slightly low degree or difficulty, just a 2.5 twister from Bjorn there. But when you execute it like that, and it's a prelim, you know, I'd happily use that as a warm-up. Slightly decrease the difficulty.
Yeah, when you see some of the harder dives falter, that's where he'll be always there, ready to pounce.
Cedric's
incredibly fast twist.
Very fast twist.
Looks like 2.5 twists almost, but I promise it was 3.5. Interesting leg work on the takeoff.
And you see that arm on the start, very, very far out to the side to wrap it in.
Perhaps that's one of the reasons why the twist is so fast.
Yes. The problem with that is sometimes not as square as it could be.
Yep. And we just saw a few glimpses of two legs in that dive, and that the judges, they do deduct from that. You know, he did well to fight to get it. Very impressive, but just, yeah, could be that extra bit of finesse.
That's some lovely aerial work from Cameron there. I thought he was going to clean that up on the end because he gets a great hurdle.
He does. I was really hopeful for that and impressed at how comfortable that was.
Yeah.
Like a few of his other dives, unfortunately, he's just over-rotated.
Great form.
Lost the potential that he could have got from that.
You can see just that, I think, you know, it's that morning nerves, that confidence on those lineups. He's just not quite attacking them, but let's hope in the semi-final he does.
Solid dive from Jake.
Very solid again.
And he's always there. Nothing we've seen has been really wow, but everything is there or thereabouts, and I'm really impressed with that. Consistency is key. It's a little bit like we were saying with Bjorn. Always, I mean, Bjorn's entries have been exceptional, but still always there, and when some of the harder dives aren't going in, that's where these guys will be capitalizing.
Yeah. And that's all you're looking for from a prelim.
And Yona now 4 2.5 somersaults, 2 twists. I love the patience in the hurdle. That was one of the things that I actually wasn't so good at, but Yona, he rides the board so well, and because he's so heavy, you know, in excess of 90 kilos, he still has the patience to take the board all the way. I love
Yona, we mean that as a compliment, I must, I stress.
No, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
It's all right, buddy. You're doing great.
Another exceptional dive from Yona there.
It was. He looks in great form. And I actually know from speaking to Yona, he feels confident now, doesn't he?
A big dive for James
Big
here.
dive. And this is the last dive of the competition. Let's go, James Heatley.
He's done a good job.
That's a lot of dive to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he has done well. Very strong on the single leg push. Again, because he's got so much dive, he could have let himself ride the board a little bit longer just to give him a bit extra height, but he still executed that well enough.
Yeah.
He'll be excited to give that another go in the semi-final. I'm excited to see that.
I think for James, the fact that he can do that list in a prelim just shows you how comfortable that difficulty is for him.
And how far he's actually come. I was really impressed. I know James, he can be very hard on himself. So he will be a little bit frustrated probably seeing that score,
Yeah.
but I hope he can take the list of dives he's doing into consideration, the fact that he's doing a new dive, the back 3.5 somersaults. That's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think he'll be looking at going for 420 in the semi and maybe 450, 470 in the final. So I know for a fact that he's looking at definitely a 450 as like a baseline.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is something that's really impressive. He's come on so much in the last few years. I used to do synchro with James on the Springboard when we had some great results. But watching James now, there's no way I'd be anywhere close.
Are you
He's
sure,
really
Freddie?
excelled.
I reckon you could get the speedos back on.
I could get the Speedos back on, and that's about it, I think. You know.
just stand there, look good.
Speedos and a shimmy.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I would still like to commentate on that.
Well, maybe we can arrange that. Maybe we can make that happen. So what we're watching right now is the warm-up for the women's tower event. This is just giving them 5 minutes because all of the girls, they paraded earlier with the boys. We saw them. So just because they've had to sit down for an hour, they're just getting 5 minutes to just shake things off, get wet, maybe do some of the jumps or lead-ups that they're looking to do for their competition. And so that's what we're seeing just now. And the women's event is gonna start any moment now. You can see the timetable we've got on the board there briefly. So yeah, I'd say any moment now, the women will start.
Yeah,
and then
we
we'll
can
move to
see
the other semis.
just important,
so
especially on
prelims.
platform, it's important to make sure you're feeling your entry. It's
Yes.
actually not important to do. You can see just a lineup being done on the 7 meter with a great entry there.
Great entry.
From, I believe it was Eden, actually.
It looked like it through the camera, but
Yes,
I'm
it
just
was.
looking to the other side of the monitor to check, and yeah, that was Eden.
And a lovely dive from 10 meter there. It's just important to make sure that you feel comfortable in those lineups because on platform, that entry is everything.
It is everything. And it's very psychological, isn't it? One of the things that I remember feeling, just being wet. And that sounds a little strange,
Yeah.
but just getting into the water and then being able to chamois off and like, okay, now that's, alerted me up. I'm ready for business now just because I've got back in the pool. But somehow being just completely dry makes me feel not ready.
For sure. Well, it was almost, with the heat of the pool, you do tend to feel a little bit lethargic before you do your first dive, and that's literally the worst thing that you could feel before your first dive.
It is. It shakes you up. I wouldn't mind for that reason to have a little dip in the pool right now. It's a particularly warm venue, the Life Centre, isn't it, Kyle? Yeah, but really, really good stuff we saw this morning. If anyone's tuning into the live stream now, as you can see, the women have taken to the platforms. They're just doing their final preparation. Dives, lead-ups, build-ups. That's a great shot there of the 5 meter board. These are what we call the lead-up dives.
Yep. So we'll see that dive that's just been done with an extra somersault off the 10 meter.
Exactly. And that's how that typically works, isn't it? So say a dive from the 5 meter board, you'll see maybe a somersault or a twist less than what they would do on the 10 meter platform.
Yeah, and I think it's actually, there's only so many times you can go off the 10 meter. You don't train every single day up there. You can only do 1 day up, and then 1 day you stay on the lower boards, do a bit of springboard, and then the next day you go back to 10 meter. And it's with platform, I almost tell people it's almost a different sport to 3 meter, where what you need on platform is actually that real sharpness and alertness to hit those entries.
Yes.
Actually making the dive, the platform doesn't change much. If you get a good takeoff and a good start, the actual difference between a good start and a bad start might only be 30 centimeters. In the grand scheme of 10 meters, that's nothing.
Yes.
And so springboard's very different. A bad stamp on the board, you could be a meter out, and you only have 3 meters total. So, you know, it's a completely different event in that sense.
It is, actually. I think that's a really, really good point. Obviously, the psychological height factor changes for the springboard, so it makes you feel more comfortable. But you're right, because the board has moved as much as it does, especially with all the guys we just witnessed in this first competition, there's huge differences in takeoffs.
And that's why it's even more impressive when you get people who do both.
Yes.
I know James, for a fact, is doing the team event this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, he hasn't done 10 meter in well, probably a couple of years. And the fact that he can get up there and still do a reverse 2.5 or an inward 2.5 is actually, you know, super impressive to have that skill set, because often 10 meter divers do train on 3 meter, but 3 meter divers, they often won't do any 10 meter at all. So the fact that he has the courage to do that, you know, that's quite rare.
It's really rare and very impressive, and there have only been a few people in
diving history
who have been very, very competent performers on both, because it is so different and it is so difficult.
I think most notably probably Patrick Hausding of Germany. He was synchro 10 meter Olympic medalist. He was always in the final of a 3 meter board and 3 meter synchro. He used to do all 4 events. So
lunatic.
Yeah, a bit of a lunatic, and a reverse,
in the best way possible.
A reverse 3.5 pike on 3 meter, which no one else in the world was doing.
An
as well.
incredibly impressive lunatic.
Yes.
But and also actually to you know, take all of that pressure and that body damage on board and to not be horribly injured all the time. Very impressive. We're looking at now some of the results coming through from the men's 3 meter preliminary event. These are the juniors coming through. They're just being announced in-house. So we see Danny Mabbott coming in 7th place there. We just lose there, and here we go. So that's a full, I can see now in venue. There we go, that's a great shot of the junior men's board with Danny Mabbott in 7th place, 290 points. I say we've just moved on from the juniors, so I hope you guys managed to get a good glimpse of that. But we're looking at the senior men's preliminary results now.
Yep.
So we have a joint 6th place. That's very rare.
That is rare. Getting to 2 decimal places, exactly the same score after 6 rounds, is very rare.
That was impressive. So that's Cameron and Tyler both tied 6th place. Cedric from Canada in 5th, 351 points. 4th place, Jake, 356 points. 3rd place, a top 3, James Heatley, 366 points on that very difficult list. Then Bjorn Markington from Canada now, 380, very consistent. He didn't really miss there, and that's why we see him in 2nd.
Just the difficulty he was missing, which is why he didn't quite reach the 400s there. And you see Yona well out in front with it.
No surprises to see Yona on top there. Just very, very competent, very solid. No big misses. He would have liked more on his inward 3.5, I know, but otherwise, everything was there, wasn't it?
Everything was there, and I think he is holding back on his difficulty a bit. So I know for a fact he's been working his front 4.5. He can do a triple out, but it's not quite ready yet. It's maybe something we might see later down the line. But I don't know if he makes the final. Maybe he would whip out the 109.
Yeah, maybe that's our job, Kai. We convince him.
Yeah, I'm going to get in his head later on.
I can't wait to see that. So as we saw from that previous tile there, the women's event, and you can see some of the women up on that 10-meter platform, all the way up there, ready for this competition to begin. We have Grace Ali. She's representing England, and she's on the 10-meter board now, ready to go. So she'll be anxiously a little bit anxious up there to get this competition underway. We had the men diving first, and now we move on to the women's platform event. It will be the same format, so the junior women are going to dive first. We have 6 divers in that event, and then we'll move on to the senior women. We have 7 divers in that event. So we'll have a diving round of 15 divers in total. They're all compete 5 dives, and we will see some of the dives, as we mentioned earlier, in the junior event only, happening from the 5-meter board and the 7-meter board, as well as the 10-meter. Predominantly, we'll see it from the 10-meter, but there will be a few from the other boards just to help the junior women ease them into what is a very physically demanding event.
And we will point out when we see something on the 5 and 7, what they'll be working through on that 10-meter.
Exactly. It'll be a clear progression, won't it?
Exactly.
So we heard the referee's whistle there. That means the competition is underway. Grace is ready. A reverse dive piked.
That is a very solid start.
Really well done.
Yeah.
Her entries aren't necessarily the thing that comes the most naturally to Grace, but she's done a very good entry. That's important because she's opening that with a required dive. And so what's the reason for her to do a dive more simple like that, Kyle?
She might not quite have, she might be working towards a reverse 2.5 somersault on 10-meter, and a reverse 1.5 tuck on 5-meter is still quite a difficult dive and not that nice to compete off the lower board. So she might think, you know what, I'm going to start nice and steady with a nice required. And a big back 2.5 pike from Jaden there.
Really, really impressed. That's difficult, and I imagine quite a hard dive to open your event with. Very solid. Her feet have slightly washed past vertical, which is why you saw that splash, but actually the entry she got was very good.
It was very good, and she must be very comfortable back and reverse spinning to open out on that, because that is a tricky dive to navigate in the first round.
It is tricky. So we have our first running takeoff here from Ellen, representing Scotland, for 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist. I think that Ellen there giving us an indication of how difficult, but also how kind of maybe scary this can be, sort of, you know, muttering things to herself, getting ready psychologically for that dive.
Yep.
Aerial work was good, wasn't it, Kyle?
Takeoff was really good. A touch away from the board, but actually she put herself in a great position to rip that. Just, that's what I was talking about. Those when we saw in practice, those entries before, they give you that confidence in comp to hit those ends.
And that's when you get it right, the entry's very impressive, isn't it? From 10 meter. But when it's not right, because of the speed you actually have hitting the water, it can make things more dramatically
The water
splashy.
can be very unkind. Bailey there with an in between half on 7, and that's a dive which she'd be looking to add an extra somersault in on the 10 meter.
Yep. Yeah, but that 3.5 somersaults from the 7 meter that would be a little bit too tricky, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun.
I could only imagine. So yeah, we're on the 10 meter again now. 3.5 somersaults in the forward position.
And we can see just that on the takeoff there, if you look at the replay here, she just brings up her knees into the tuck, just slows it down a touch, but still had plenty of time to find her end.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. That would have felt slow to her.
Touch slow, and I think given sometimes when you feel like you have energy, you can come out with a bit more confidence and really stop the rotation. When you feel it slow, you always try and play it safe, and you end up actually not stopping the rotation and therefore not able to get that lineup.
Yeah, that's unfortunately what we saw there. Nicely executed
solid start from Hannah there.
From Hannah, really solid. It's only the body position that's just slightly let her down on entry. I thought she was going to nail that, but just a little bit loose.
You could hear the palms go flat with the water there. That rips out, but just losing the tension in the lower back, so she didn't quite get her end. I know for a fact she can do that, you know, for an 8. So she'll be looking to up that in the next round.
Yeah, absolutely. Eden Cheng here for 3.5 somersaults piked.
So Eden opening up with the front 3.5 pike here. she's got a great lift off the board. Very, very pingy diver. And she's going to finish this with plenty room. Wow. That's a lovely dive.
It was lovely, wasn't it? Very easily completed. The form was perfect. The only thing which we can obviously see there, a slight over-rotation. That's where the splash comes up. But it wasn't much.
No, and I think seeing, as a judge, you see that, and you just can't really score it lower than a 7 because it looks so comfortable.
Exactly.
And
You're
the form is
absolutely
there.
right. That's a shame about the entry. I really enjoyed the jump from her legs that she had on that.
And she had a great, you see that press through. That was, you know, that's that little bit of flair I like to see.
It looked like confident and like, check this out.
Yeah, like, oh, I've got 5-6 meters to play with here.
And I know it.
Yeah.
But she actually had too much room to play with, really.
Yeah, a little bit earlier with that sort of come out, and she could have put that in. Gemma here with a back to 1.5 twist in the pipe position. And a very nice dive from Gemma there.
Really nice. That's the highest degree of difficulty dive that we've seen so far, 3.2, and she's nailed it.
She has nailed it. And that's actually the highest difficulty we're going to see is a 3.3, and that's a 3.2. So opening out on that and doing it for that execution.
She'll be
really
delighted.
Impressive.
And I know that will make Gemma feel good because she'll be moving into, she's got the Commonwealth Games later on this year. Really big event, great event, representing Scotland.
Yep.
So anything that she can do now, I know she's been very busy with competitions, but anything that she can do to show that she's performing like that, that puts her in great stead coming up to the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah. Nice dive from Lucy.
Lucy's, yeah, really well executed. Again, entries isn't necessarily Lucy's strong point, but she's done well there. The whole dive looked great, and she's kept a lot of that water down.
Yeah, really good distance from the board. Nice come out. Seen that entry, just didn't quite hold her line through the water, so you see that sort of heaviness, that bubbliness on the end. The volcano entry, as we call it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's still a sign. It's a semi-rip.
It's a semi-rip because what happens is you almost punch a hole for your body to go into. And the reason you get that bubbliness is your body doesn't quite fall in line with where your hands have pierced that hole, that pocket for yourself to go into, until you get this sort of welling up of air.
Yeah, but it can be actually quite satisfying to see, though, can't it?
It can be. It also saves you swimming up.
Is that's something you enjoy?
Yeah, it is. And we've just seen a great dive from Emily.
Great dive. Again, really nicely done. Perhaps not quite as comfortable as Eden's, but still the execution was there.
Where Emily excels is she can find an entry on anything. You can see it slightly lower, maybe not the closest pipe, but she knows exactly how to enter the water.
She does. So Robin here, she's a very experienced diver, Robin, opening her campaign with an arm stand dive. This is a back double somersault with 1.5 twists. Another 3.2 degree of difficulty dive.
Very solid.
Showing her experience. For me personally, not being a platform diver, I would have thought that it's a challenge to have to do a handstand for your first dive, but Robin likes it, doesn't she?
Yeah, well, ex-gymnast, she went to the World Championships in acro before she switched to diving. And you can tell she's just very comfortable with opening on that.
Yeah, really, no wobbles, no fluctuations, just
never in doubt.
Never in doubt. She'll be happy probably that we're so confident in her ability.
Exactly.
Back to the juniors now. Grace, back 2.5 piked.
She's done a great job at sneaking that in.
She has. I'm really impressed with that. Just there, she can always get a little bit more from the entry, but she knew exactly where she was aerially, and she's landed exactly on her head.
It's a good distance from the board, a good shape. A touch slow. But she came out with her confidence and realized that she had pressed slightly early and did the right thing to get it in.
It looks like she knows what she's doing with that. It's a conscious choice.
Wow, great entry from Jaden there.
Yeah, I think Jaden again showing that that's what she possesses. Again, those good hands, good entries. And as a tower diver, platform diver, that's always good to have.
Yeah, you can see she was a little flat-footed out the board and maybe didn't get the pop out the board that she probably wanted, but was aware enough to recognize that and get some good hands.
Yeah, great stuff so far. Ellen now in with 2.5 somersaults in the pike position.
Okay, she's got a great entry there. She was slightly up and down, I think, and the feet were quite close, which is normal for this dive. But
yeah, it's hard to do the dive well without being fairly close to the toes.
Exactly, but she's come out just a touch early and then had to adjust for that. But you know, really good adjustment for her. Great awareness. We've got Bailey here doing a back 2.5 with 1.5 twists in the pike position.
Again, it's that 3.2 degree of difficulty dive. She's done it well. It's on her head, as we like to say. She's landed vertically. Yeah. She hasn't got the entry.
No, you can see a little low finishing there. And it doesn't give the arms enough time to fully lock out to get that rip entry.
Because that's what you need, isn't it? Fully extended elbows and shoulders pressed to your ears.
You need all that power coming through the triceps and the shoulders.
And that's why we get a lot of tricep injuries, isn't it? Because of that extension.
Yeah, a lot of ripped triceps on 10 meter for sure. A little slow from Libby there. You can see the repike after the twist a little wide. And so this repike here just didn't quite get it moving, and therefore it feels, when you're in that dive yourself, you feel like you're dropping a lot.
Yeah, rather than the hips sort of constantly moving over your head, it's, you're sort of clinging on a little bit.
Clinging on, yep.
She's done it well enough to get there, but she wants a little bit more of a dynamic table, tighter shape to really try and nail that one.
Wow, that's a lovely dive from Hannah there. A slightly easier dive.
Yes.
But I know she does this dive on 10 meter, 3.5. She's been having some shin problems recently, hence not doing the running up just to protect those for, you know, the big nationals coming up in 2 weeks. But if she can execute a 2.5 on 7 like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart decision as well. You have to, it's great to have these competitions, but if you're not physically ready, that can sometimes add some pressure and some complications. But I think a good decision there from Hannah.
Great decision.
And really well executed.
Yep.
Ooh, shame.
That's a shame, Fina, because you can see how easy she makes this dive. And a lot of girls will be punching out straight from the tuck to a straight position. You can see here she's got enough time to go into that pike, see the end, but she's just put her head down, so she's not seen the water there.
And even the takeoff, she's got a lot of pop from her ankles, a lot of jump. But I thought it was maybe sat a little bit back.
It was.
Maybe that's why she's overworked the end, but the dive was still really comfortable for her.
When you do sit back like that, you do feel like, oh, I need to compensate for this. I need to get into a tight tuck, which we saw, and you're likely to drop the head to get it moving as a fix.
That's that same arm stand dive we're seeing again there, the double somersault with 1.5 twists.
Yeah. So you can see Kate not quite bending the arms as much as Robin did on her opening dive. So not quite getting that connection out the board to get that little lift into the twist to finish it a bit higher.
Yeah, you need that jump still, don't you?
You do. And the judges are looking for that, still that direction and height off the board.
So Gemma again, she'll be looking to emulate what she did in round 1. Forward 3.5 somersaults piked now.
Wow, that's an awesome dive from Gemma.
Beautiful Gemma. She's
so
far diving great.
Yeah.
I can't really knock that, if I'm honest.
It was a high start, it was good direction, finish high, and you can see no loss of tension through the water there. That's a really clean entry.
For that extra wow, maybe that really, she didn't have quite the really aggressive rip entry like
No.
0 splash, but it was very, very good.
And in a final, you would expect that to get some 8.5s. Maybe 1 or 2 9s might sneak in.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
I'd hope so.
That's what I want to see.
Exactly. That's a shame from Lucy.
As soon as she kicked, you know, we could see that was going to be an issue. She's pressed out very early. She's come out of her shape actually at double, and she didn't have the somersault speed to carry that kind of press to her hands.
We do see that press on that dive a lot because it is an easier dive for 10 meters, but you need to have a big top to do that, and it was just a touch slow.
Yeah, she'll be disappointed. I know that Lucy, she has the Commonwealth Games coming up as well, but for Wales, so she'll be excited for that. But yeah, not exactly what she would have wanted. But again, this kind of event is great to just give you more experience. It's all, you learn from things like that. It can play on your mind, but you do learn that, okay, I need to make sure that I don't make that kind of mistake again, and hopefully she can take that on board. Yeah,
she'll definitely know next time that, you know, sometimes you can see she's going for that rip entry there. She's trying to be fully extended as she's hit the water, and sometimes playing it a bit safe might be the better call. Awesome entry again from Emma.
Yeah, it's like you say, she can find her hands, can't she?
And if you were to look at that top, with a lot of divers, you can see she's having to squirm it around a touch, but she's managed to find her hands, and that's that sort of composure and awareness that she'll be looking forward to go through this comp.
It is, and it's you mentioned that, Kyle. It's really fascinating, the strengths and weaknesses of different divers. You know, we can see it from Emily. It's landing on her head, regardless of what happens up top. She's often able to get that, but you know, perhaps some of the aerial work wasn't as competent, say, as Robin's that we're watching now.
This is a new dive for Robin. She's switched it for the reverse 2.5 tuck in her list. So I hope it goes well. You know
I think she's played that too safe, though,
she has,
maybe.
But I think she won't mind that because it's the first time competing it. It's a feeler. It's not just a little bit faster and a bit more confident on that start. I've seen her move that much quicker, and that would go down. So the timing on the come out was actually perfect.
It looked like a feeler.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I see what you're saying. Once it got that bit more confidence, then she can just do the exact same thing and then find the entry.
And find the end.
So back to the juniors again now. Diver 1, Grace Alley.
That's a solid dive from Grace.
She hasn't missed.
No.
Yet, which is really fantastic to see. Grace obviously being the daughter of Tony Alley, a famous springboard diver for the UK. So now the next generation is coming along.
Yes.
And doing great work so far. She hasn't actually been in the sport very long either, so she's done really well to get herself
learn those dives really quickly. Now that's a unique dive that you don't see that too often.
No, and I really enjoyed it actually. She had it's hard to do that dive, I think, with doing not very many somersaults, but with more twists from the 10-meter board to have the control.
Yeah, and it's difficult. Often you see that dive being done off the 5-meter as a lead-up, especially in the men's event.
Yes.
And the fact she's got that control, you can see she was slightly to the side on the end, but that's very hard to do. Ellen saving it quite well there.
She was really fighting.
She had to fight for that.
If the feet come down, that's what's considered a restart. So that can be a bit of a disaster, but she fought against it. She got the dive off first time. It was well executed, a little bit past vertical.
I think she'd be relieved that it didn't drop. And she actually put a good end on it.
She did.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a handstand dive, but a kick up this time.
So an interesting kick up there. We can see the cartwheel from the side. I've only seen Monique Gladden.
Yes, a handful of divers actually get up into a handstand that way, and it looks precarious, doesn't it? But I love to see it.
No,
flair.
It's that flair we were talking about. It's something different, and but kicking up as opposed to lifting up is always a risk because you have less control.
And actually, that's a very difficult dive as well. I think she's probably the only.
I think she is the only
one
person
performing that specific dive in this event. Most of the women going for
the
twist option.
Yep. Only 0.1 difficulty difference between the dive we just saw from Bailey and the twist dive. But if you ask everyone which is harder, they would. And it's one of those where maybe it should be a bigger gap, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine it would be a unanimous call.
Solid from Libby.
Really solid.
Very neat, tidy.
Again, when you're going to do the easier degree of difficulty dives, this one being a 2.4, the arm stand double somersault forwards, you've got to do it well. She did. I think 5.5 is maybe a little mean.
That is a little harsh, considering she held the handstand and it was good form.
It was.
I mean, sometimes the judges like to, you know, sort of mark with DD in mind, saying, you know, we'd like to see maybe a bigger dive there.
Which, personally, I don't necessarily like that. I think you need to just reward what's in front of you. But and also, we're watching a preliminary round, so you know, we hope that the scores for everyone, they'll be lifted when we get into the semis and then the finals.
We can see Hannah just sitting back with her bum on the start there, and it was a touch slow. And you can see that when she presses into the flat position at the pike shape, there was no power transferred, so the feet just dropped towards the pool side. So she's had to really bend her back to get that in.
But she knew that she had to, didn't she?
Exactly, and actually a really good save, because that's a dive which easily could have gone for 2s and 3s with how early she pressed.
Yeah, a clever correction. So Eden now, her arm stand dive, oh no. That's exactly what we mentioned. The fight against it didn't happen earlier from Ellen, I believe. She did come back down. That is considered a restart. So you will see a deduction that comes from the judges' scores. But let's hope she has the composure to still do a great dive. Let's go, Eden. Well, well done.
She did a good job there.
As tough as it comes, really. That's what's scary about doing an arm stand dive. And always in the back of your mind, I imagine Kyle as a platform diver that do not get that restart.
No, it's definitely, every time you're doing a handstand, you make sure you're solid first, and then you think about the dive. It's not one where, as you're lifting up, you're already thinking about what you're going to do in the air. You are thinking about, right, set myself a solid base so I can go. And it's always hard when you come down and then knowing that even if you do a dive for 8s, you're going to get 6s. It is a little bit of a kick in the teeth. But no, she did. That was a solid dive and a good recovery.
And again, a test of character. That's something that hopefully she can take the positives from and learn. I can recompose myself under that circumstance.
Wow, good job from Kate. That is, in with 3.5 is one of the second hardest dive we're going to see, with a 3.2 degree of difficulty. She got a really good top there. It was moving.
It was. I really enjoyed that. A little bit of anticipation, do you think, on the come out? Slightly too early?
Slightly too early. She probably felt, really good in the air with that good balance and good shape. Going for that. Thing is, I like to see that, going for that entry, not just playing it safe.
Yes. Definitely getting the legs out fast.
Exactly. She could have added a pike out.
She could have. Flare. Let's see it.
Another good dive from Gemma.
She's looking really, really good. She's clearly been working very hard up in Edinburgh.
And what I like to see is you see a bit more of a press and a bit of a lift out the board there. Actually, an actual, rather than the feet coming right underneath the board, you see a little bit of distance, a little bit of strength from the hands.
And when done like that, it makes it look like you're the one in control of the dive, that you're doing the dive, as opposed to it sort of happening to you and hoping to get the entry.
We call that being a passenger. Which I'm very, very used to. Sometimes you're in the air and you're just like, oh no.
Fingers crossed.
I'm just here for the journey to the water.
comeback there
That is
from Lucy.
a great recovery from Lucy.
Well done. That's actually a more difficult dive. She's attacked the takeoff. She's had a good pike, maybe a little bit more squeeze, but she's got a good entry. And we said that comeback, the recovery, it's so important, such a psychological battle to just put the previous dive behind you. Move on to the next. She's done that. Hopefully that settled her nerves.
You can tell she's very good at compartmentalizing each dive and just moving on. Emily, we see a back dive pike here, changed from the reverse 3.5. Another great entry from her there. Nice and simple, great form. Perhaps, I know a reverse is a dive she struggles with a bit, and she could be, I don't know whether it's an injury thing or just a confidence thing. Maybe she didn't feel ready, because she is, you know, we still have 2 weeks until the big comp, and she maybe didn't want to risk it, which is very understandable. And when you can execute a back dive like that, it's not so much of a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to dive smart overall, haven't you? It can't just be constantly 100%, you know, full gas. You need to, you know, listen to your body and make sure you make the right decisions. The big comp you mentioned being the national championships in 2 weeks, where all the selections will be made for the season coming up.
And she was national champion back in February. That's unfortunate for Robin there. I know it's a dive she used to struggle with back in the day, and she's done a lot of work to make it more consistent. And I've seen that go down in training this past week. And she would be disappointed with that, because she actually got a really good top there.
She did. Again, she looked confident and strong through her ankles, through the pop. It was a good jump. It looked just a slow come out. Maybe she just needs to attack the end, and then she can really
some
find
morning
her
nerves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens, but yeah. Let's see Robin bounce back, hopefully. And Grace Alley, armstand back double somersault, piked now.
Now, that's an interesting one, because it's a dive we don't see that often on the platform.
It's probably actually hard to control, and that's kind of what we've seen there.
We see in the men's event, they add an extra somersault, and you see the feet actually come up over the front of the board, and then you do a 2.5 somersault from that point. With that dive, it's sort of an in-between. If the feet come over the board, it's potentially too much rotation.
Yes.
And to actually get a pop and get the feet under the board, it's quite a difficult thing to balance.
It is. It's the first miss we saw from Grace. She will be disappointed. Maybe that's her weakest dive. What she did so far was great. But Jaden, she hasn't missed.
No.
Again, very solid, good entries. I've been very impressed with her. Again, that was from the 7-meter board. So like you mentioned before, the ambition presumably will be to get that dive onto the 10-meter with an extra somersault.
You would see an inward 3.5 on 10, and it's probably something she's working towards, because she is one of the juniors in this comp. So that dive is probably in the development for her.
Also on the 7-meter board, that was a back 2.5 somersaults from Ellen. The takeoff was nice and easy.
It was, and she let herself down with the come out there, because actually it was a good top and tuck. And if she had kicked and looked at her feet instead of coming out in that full extended position, she would have given herself that little bit of wiggle room to actually rotate the dive a bit more before she reached back.
And that extra visual information to think, right, this is where I am in the air.
Yep, gauge the height and then make the necessary adjustments. And that's the hardest dive we're going to see in this competition from Bailey.
Wow, I'm very impressed.
Very impressed.
With Bailey for attempting that, for attempting the back arm stand triple that we saw earlier. It's a hard dive.
And as a junior as well.
Hard. And she's a junior, but she's given it a go. It was a little bit low on the water, wasn't it?
It was, and I think it's one of those where, you know, she started doing them at such a young age that, you know, by the time she reaches 18 and she becomes a senior, those dives will be, you know, ready to go.
Yeah, and she'll be really asking big questions of the other athletes. Yeah, very impressed with the fortitude to take that dive.
I love to see when the DD is pushed, especially in any event.
Yeah. That is a shame. There was just never enough somersault speed to execute that dive, to get it all the way around. She looked good in the pike shape.
Yeah,
but
nice and neat.
Very neat.
But you know, if you don't get those hips over on the start, you're always fighting a losing battle with that inward. The worst thing you can do on the start is lift up the feet into the pike shape.
Yeah.
And almost, you're trying to rotate forward, so if the feet are coming up,
yeah,
you'll end up just cancelling each other out, and it just cuts your rotation.
And that's the battle with inward and reverse
yeah,
somersaulting dives.
Working on almost... Wow.
Smart kick.
Very smart kick.
Come out.
And we can see, what I was going to say about inward and reverse, you're obviously moving forward, spinning the other way. So the further out you go, the slower your rotation. And also, when you kick out to stop the dive, the further away it is, the faster it stops. You don't get any energy transfer into rotation. So she was smart there, put her feet to the ceiling, knowing that it's going to stop dead wherever she puts the feet, and got a great entry.
Great entry, yeah, clever. To get more scores, we want to see a more aggressive takeoff, but a very clever diver, Hannah, and she's done really well to execute that on the entry as well as she did.
Eden, back 3.5 tuck. This is the hardest dive. We've seen one already. I know for a fact she makes this. She cruises it, so I'd like to see her control this. Oh, that's a shame.
It is. She's missed that one. You can see Eden's power. She still spins in the shape really nicely. Perhaps it sat back with her hips on the takeoff.
Yeah, didn't quite get her hips through on the start. And sometimes I see her just explode off that board. And she almost finishes 1.5 somersaults by board height at training. And then she can do that come out, which we just saw, you know, pressing the feet at 45 degrees.
Yeah.
Just not with that start.
Not with that takeoff. Again, in the semi-final, moving forward, I'm looking forward to watching that again to see the real Eden come into play.
Yeah, another back 3.5. This is good to see, I think. You know, it's been a...
Raising the bar.
Raising the bar. This is a dive which sort of was lost from the women's event for quite a few years.
And Kate has done an excellent job. She looked like she was accelerating in the tuck shape.
She recognized she had kicked slightly early, and you see that arch, and she got her hands on it. Yeah, but what I was saying, that dive sort of fell out of favor with sort of people opting for the back 2.5 with pike instead. Lower degree, far easier dive, and it's nice to see it coming back.
From these young women.
Exactly, from juniors as well. It shows you how the sport is shifting.
Oh, that's the first
drop from Gemma.
The first drop, and
you could see from the start.
You could. It looked like she attacked the takeoff, but in the wrong way. The ankles were there, but the timing between her throw and the jump didn't match.
You could see her go for that first ankle. So when you do an inward, you start on your toes, and there's 2 rocks. And you can see in the second rock, she's jumped almost her whole foot on the board. And it's not allowed that elasticity in the ankles to get that ping. And it's just gone slightly back and gone slow into the somersault.
And you mentioned it earlier, Kyle, like dropping in your shape. For a dive that's that difficult, you need to feel that zip. And it didn't have that. Well, on her other back entering dive, she had a big miss. So Lucy, again, has come back well on that. She's caught her shoulders on the entry. That's what's kicked up the splash, but by no means a bad dive.
No, I think she'll take that, actually. I know back and reverse is not her favorite dive. So actually something steady, 6s, just in the prelim, she'd be more than happy with that. Just a touch slow. You'd like to see a bit more confidence, and I think that would go down.
Yeah. So Emily Martin, back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists. There's been some misses, so this could be a window of opportunity for Emily to gain some points above the rest of the competition.
Especially with the lower degree of difficulty she did in the previous round. This would be a good chance to put herself back on top. And there we see it again. Maybe not the highest finishing, a little away from the board there, but she knows exactly what she's doing. You know, at probably this point where she's in that repike, you can see a little cast there, which means she's twisted slightly early off the board.
Yeah.
And it makes the dive drop a little lower, so it finishes lower. But she's recognized that and knows where the entry is.
an intelligent diver, I would describe that as.
For sure, an experienced one.
Yes. So Robin, let's see what her answer is to the previous slightly unsuccessful round.
Oh, that was there. That was there for the taking. It was a touch slow, but she came out at the right time.
And she did.
If you had paused it just before she hit the water there, you would have thought she's got that.
Yeah.
But that little confidence of what I mentioned before, just not quite squeezing or not going for your entry, you can see she was slightly apprehensive about that.
And I think she's been unlucky that so much splash was thrown up.
Yeah, sometimes you can get away with that.
Yeah, it's like those slightly volcano-y ones or something, but it's really, the water's worked against her there.
Yeah. What's happened there is her shoulder angle's been closed, and the body has just gone into a sheer mass of water, and the pocket of air has been, on the poolside side before her.
So a slightly easier dive again from Grace. She's done the back 2.5 somersaults, but with a half twist this time. We've seen a lot of the girls do 1.5 twists. She's over-rotated, but it was good.
It was solid. It's an easier dive, and she maybe could do and add an extra twist, but it wouldn't look as easy. It would look a little labored, and I think doing that's a good decision.
Yeah, definitely. She had one little miss, but other than that, she's been solid, so she needs that consistency.
Oh, that's a shame, because if she had reached back there, she could have got a very naughty entry.
I was ready for that, to smoke the water, actually. I think that's the first entry we've seen that's been under par for her, Jaden.
For sure. You can tell she knows how to rip.
Yeah.
She's just gone slightly long with the arms there, away from the body, which increases the time it takes them to get into that sort of handstand position for the entry.
So that was Ellen on the 5-meter platform doing a forward 2.5. So that's exactly a lead up, isn't it?
That is a lead up, yes.
She will just be taking that to the 10-meter board with an extra somersault.
Yeah, and you can see nice ping out the board, a little slow, but because she makes it quite easy, she's actually just come out a little early and sort of tried to adjust for those competition adrenaline.
Yeah.
And just adjusted too much.
I don't know if she's completed that dive yet, but it looks like she'd be ready to.
Yes. Okay. A good recovery from her back 3.5. Very far away from the board. So she was trying to do what we saw from Hannah, just not quite as successfully as we saw Hannah do. But you see her put the feet to the ceiling in the right place and just save it.
Yeah, so this is Libby. She is on the 5-meter platform as well. Back 1.5 somersaults, piked.
So we can see Libby trying to control the dive there, because it is an easier dive.
Yep.
She will for sure be doing a back double pike on 5-meter and then doing a 2.5 pike on 10-meter probably in the near future, or maybe has already done it. But you can see good form, just she held back on that because it is an easier dive.
She held back. I liked the jump, but the somersault speed wasn't quite there, and she attacked the water a little bit more. It's all great experience.
Yeah. Sometimes those sort of dives are, as you know, they're far harder because you have to, it actually takes a little bit more control. You can't go at it 100%.
Yep. Hannah's worked that dive well.
Yes.
She's forced that into a good position on her hands.
So slightly back in the start, little earlier with the twist, but actually not too wobbly in the repike.
No, from seeing from the front angle, actually she was quite clean,
quite square. Just didn't quite have the height and the drop. That bit of power and direction on the start, and that entry would clean up because she's actually dropping into the water more vertically.
Yeah, that really helps. Yeah, shot of the tape that Eden has on her ankles. I know she's really struggling with both of her ankles, and I think she might have even seen a doctor, perhaps even last night in London. So the fact that she's back here competing with those problems is quite something, actually.
Yeah, she's been having some ankle problems for a while. They've been playing up a little bit, and you know, the fact that she's been pushing through and still doing big dives, and you can see the power she still has in them.
Yeah.
Just she's pushing through that pain. You know,
I know that she feels like it affects her power, doesn't she?
Well, it's just another thing that plays in your mind.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to ignore it. Okay, not a good dive from Kate there.
Good dive from Kate. I've been impressed with her. We'll see from this angle. Again, very square actually on the twist. That's good. Slightly over-rotated, but I really enjoyed the aerial work of that dive.
Nothing looked too rushed. It was a good distance. The twist wasn't rushed, and it meant that she was very square coming into that next somersault.
So Gemma now back 2.5 somersaults piked.
Oh, it's
Great
lovely.
dive.
That's a great dive.
Really, really good. She found the vertical entry point again from a previous slightly missed dive. We've seen some exceptional diving from Gemma today. That's back on track.
That's almost just a little bit of a cleaner entry, and she'd get straight at 8s there.
Yeah.
Great speed, good press. Slightly early with the hands, which has just washed her a touch over. But, you know, that's very solid.
It is competently executed. And Lucy, this is the hardest dive for her. 3.2 degree of difficulty, back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists.
I quite enjoyed that. I enjoyed the direction. I enjoyed the top. You can see here, nothing rushed. A little slow in the repike, so it didn't quite get moving after she had finished the twist. But she did a good job with the entry.
I think for me as well, that's what I enjoyed to see. Rather than it's not the easiest dive for her, but rather than send it away from the platform,
No, yeah.
she let the dive happen. She didn't rush it, like you said.
I call them cheat codes. You know, when your legs are feeling tired,
Yeah.
especially on that twist dive, it's very easy just to sit back
Yeah.
and just let gravity do the work for you. I've been guilty of that many times. Sometimes it's
done.
necessary in a morning session.
But yeah, Lucy hasn't done that there, so that was great to see. Emily now, she's got an inward 3.5. Again, joint top degree of difficulty for her. This is another 3.2. Let's see what Emily can produce.
Wow, awesome dive from Emily there. I mean, it's a good distance. It's even slightly low on the end, but she knows exactly where she is when she's spinning there, and that's an awesome entry.
She really does. I'm impressed with Emily. She's showing why she was national champion.
Yeah, exactly.
If some of the girls like Eden, if they're on top form, it would be very difficult for Emily. But they all know that she's always going to be there.
Yeah, very steady, very steady.
Well, this is our ultimate dive now. Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twist from Robin, the last dive of the event.
It's not bad. It's a little slow, and slightly. I would have liked to see her, as she checked on the end, just dig it a little bit more on the end, just so she got that rotation to find her entry.
Yeah, the angle of which she went through the water, you could see was slightly in front of that perpendicular angle.
And sometimes when you are short of the vertical entry, you can just hold your line and try and force the dive to roll underneath the water to sneak an entry in.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a wrap for session 1. I've been very, very impressed by what we saw there from the women. There were some misses, but some really steady stuff, some big dives.
Some big dives,
some big rips.
Nice to see some 3.5s, and also nice to see some entries this morning.
Yeah, they were certainly ready for that, and I actually think we're only going to see things progress as we move through. The scores are going to improve. I think the performances will improve, and the judges are going to feel that extra energy and be more willing to give even bigger scores. This is exciting.
Yeah, I would like to see some tidier ends and then maybe some 9s in that final.
Yeah, so from your opinion, Kyle, we'll talk about that 10-meter competition we just saw from the women. What do you want to see?
I think I would quite like to, you can see most of the competitors, with the exception of a couple, they're just a little apprehensive coming into that lineup. So the last phase of that dive, so you have phase 1, which I classify the takeoff and the connection out the board. Phase 2 would be where you get most of the dive done, which is between the 10 and 5 meters. And that last 5 meters should be you finding how you get from that shape to that lineup position. And it's that last phase where in a prelim, you're trying to play it safe. You don't want to overextend yourself, because sometimes you have to be so tight to hit that rip entry, that perfect entry, that it's very easy to lose your tension or overextend your body, and then you see like a banana or a bit of a collapse when you hit. And I think that apprehension is what we saw in that prelim. But you know, there was a lot of dives which were there or thereabouts, and I think as we see in the semi-final and final, you'll see that change, and hopefully some higher scores from the judges.
Yeah, exactly, and we'll see the results very soon coming through for the women, so we'll just get a final readout of what the women did. We'll have the junior results first, as we can see on the screen. So when they're ready, I believe they're going to come through right now, so let's take a look at those. So as we said, the junior and the senior people, despite them being in the same event, the results are different. So they're kind of competing against each other in a way to give that extra feeling and of intensity for the competition, put more numbers, but the results will be separated.
Just to make the rounds a little slower, make sure they get, because in a normal competition, apart from a final, it's not only 7 divers. You do have a longer prelim. It's to give that feeling of what a prelim would actually usually feel like with more competitors.
And we have the results. We can see them now in 6th place. Libby Duke from Scotland, and then we have in 5th place Ellen Gillespie, 223 points. She's from Scotland as well. Grace Alley, 229 points, so she's sitting in that 4th position, representing England. Bailey Sturgill from the US, 237 points, 0.65. Impressed to see her pushing that degree of difficulty. Yep. And then we had Jaden, and we had Hannah as well into those other positions. Now in 6th place, unfortunately, in the women's platform, the senior was Eden. Just a few big misses there, but we saw she is battling with injury.
We saw the potential there.
We absolutely do, every time. 235 points. 5th, Robin again, 243 points. She's been struggling psychologically a little bit, despite her experience levels. Lucy pipped her going into 4th place, 254 points, representing Wales. Kate, a very solid performance from her, representing Canada, 276. And then again, you know, consistency is key. Emily Martin, 297. She's always around that.
And that was with a required dive.
Exactly.
Missing out probably on 20 points there.
That's what she's capable of. And then the first female breaking that 300 barrier, Gemma MacArthur, with a big miss as well, she still made 300 points.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful session overall.
Yeah, it was. And I think in both events, we'd actually be looking, in the junior especially, 1 or 2 maybe getting close to 300. And in the senior event, you'd expect 3 or 4 at least to go 300 and beyond.
So I'm really excited to see what those guys are going to do moving into their semi-finals. Coming up next, we have a similar program, but it's reversed, it's switched. We have the men now, they're going to be on the 10-meter platform, and the women, they're going to be on the 3-meter springboard. Same format, senior and junior together in both of the events, but they're going to be diving together to create that bigger competition that you were discussing. Make it feel more like an international event.
Exactly.
A big one.
And it'd be interesting to see, we've just watched the women's 10-meter, and now we're going to watch the men's 10-meter. It'd be interesting to compare the both. And then the 3-meter as well, seeing what dives are similar, because some will be the same. That back 3.5 we saw from some of the women there, you'll see that a lot in the men's event.
We'll see it from the men. I'm really excited to see what we've got coming up. The trainings look great. Kyle, it's been awesome sitting beside you. I really like all the stuff you've given, so that's been a lot of fun. But I'm probably going to lose you for another commentator in the next session. You've obviously got your own training to do, so good luck with that.
Thank you,
excited to see you tomorrow, and just to see that you're back in the pool and raring to go. That's awesome. So yeah, that is the wrap of the first session. We'll be having session 2 coming up very soon. It's been a delightful morning. I've been really happy to see what all of the juniors and the seniors have produced. As I say, we've got the men's 10-meter coming up next. We've got the women's 3-meter coming up next. And we've got a beautiful little highlight package for you guys to see from what we saw from this morning's event. So that was a real pleasure, and we'll take a look at that right now. So here we are. This is the highlights package we've got together. That was Tyler there. You can see how strong, competent he is. Easy dive, really high up in the air there. Definitely. And Bjorn, he finished in the silver medal position. Just didn't miss an opportunity. That was a really, probably his most stunning dive. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, we're getting a nice look at all of the athletes that we had competing this morning. That was Maxwell there, showing his finesse that he's capable of, the elegance in his shapes, really good stuff. Yeah, so this makes me, watching Bjorn, it makes me want to mention again the consistency, which is really important. He is going to come up against harder dives from some harder people, from harder difficulty dives, from the real senior guys and strong. If they put those dives down, that's going to be hard for him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry if you guys weren't able to hear Kyle there. Yeah, we were still, but we might have just lost his audio, so that might have sounded pretty funky from me. I wasn't just talking to myself, I promise.
But what I was saying was about Bjorn. He's going to be there or thereabouts. He'll be there to pick up if any of the big guys drop their harder dives. He'll be there, and you never wish for anyone else to do a bad dive, but you know that will play into his strategy a bit with the lower DDs and just executing them well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was our highlights graph of the men's event. Beautiful, beautiful diving from a lot of the guys, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're capable of. Grace Ali, that we just saw, she was pretty solid all the way through that. So the junior women, just to clarify as well, the next round, they will do their required dives.
Yeah.
Because they're still required to do those in the junior events.
So there'll be a degree of difficulty maximum that they have to achieve over 4 dives, which will limit, you know, how complex the dives can be. You'll see probably a front 1.5, a back dive, a reverse dive, maybe a back half twister or an inward 1.5 pike. They're the dives we're going to see. And for those, it's all about that entry.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, this is nearly towards the end of the highlights. We saw some awesome diving this morning. It makes me very, very excited in the anticipation of what we've got coming up, which will be the reverse of what we saw this morning. Thank you for watching, guys. We'll be back in the next session very soon.